The worst player of all time. A luxurious title many players have been chasing for years now. But what exactly does the worst mean? You can be mechanically atrocious, but an incredible caller that leads your team all the way to the top. You can be a player who's mechanically decent, but has a peanut brain. You can only be useful as a human flashbang. You can be Danish and rhyme with Zooksy. What if there was a player that had all of these negatives with none of the positives? In every sense, completely useless. Okay, well, how do you even calculate this? Thanks to HLTV's new player cards, it's actually kinda easy. We can look at each individual stat from these players' career, add them up, and whoever has the lowest total will be the most useless player. Easy enough. But what if this player is an in-game leader? In that case, we can't use just their player card to judge how useful they are. So if this player does turn out to be an IGL, we'll also be looking at their team's results at tournaments. The first player that comes to my mind is Advent. I watched this dude play with Ty Lue at ESL Pro League Season 19, and I genuinely could not believe my eyes. It's like this dude reverted back to a Neanderthal. He was god-awful. Let's look at his stats for this event real quick. What in the... 0 firepower? But if we look at his all-time stats, it goes up to 8. Nice job, Advent. And to be fair to him, every other stat that he has besides opening is fairly good. And once you add all of these stats up, his total is 250. He does everything besides shooting pretty well. So with 250 is kind of a baseline. Let's look at some other players. What about Hooksy? In a lot of ways, I feel like he was kind of similar to Advent. He deadass was a human flashbang half the time. His stats are very similar to Advent's. They even have the same rating. And his total comes out to 237. He also won a couple tier 1 events with G2, so it never could have been Hooksy. What about another Danish IGL? Kerrigan? This might be surprising to some of you, but his total stats are significantly below Hooksy's at only 187, our first sub 200. But, you know, major winner, FaZe, and the top 2 IGLs of all time. Kinda stupid to even consider. I know what a lot of you might have been thinking when you clicked on this video. What about Zeus? In his time as the caller for Na'Vi, he had some brutal clips. But then for no reason, he also did this.
Tremendous, job of doing so. Drop step, trying to find Zeus on the ladder. How has he done that?
Zeus's rating is actually just above Kerrigan's, but his total stats only add up to 160. Easily the worst so far. Okay, so the worst player of all time is Zeus, right? He's definitely in consideration, but you know, that major win, he's automatically goated. I just can't put him there. What if I just... Oh no. Hunden has the worst rating and KD of all time. Surely he takes the cake, right? While a great candidate, unfortunately no. His mediocre stats add up to 177, putting him right above Zeus. But Hunden has no major win, so the two are kinda even right now. If only there was someone whose total was lower than both and had no accomplishments. Well, there was a player right below Hunden that I'd cut out. The player who has the second worst rating of all time with a 0.82, and on his player card he is an 18 firepower, 11 entrying, 35 opening, 4 trading, 23 clutching, and 26 utility for a total of 117. The lowest by 43. This is the previous in-game leader for Flipside Tactics and 2-time major winning coach, Blade. Alright, let's start from the top. We've got to go back approximately a century to 2003. Blade recorded his first ever official on February 15th, 2003, with a Ukrainian 5-stack who called themselves Gun Stars. They were attending a local lane in Ukraine and even managed to make the lower bracket finals, then lost 13-3.
Son of a...
But hey, they won 600,
Rivnia.
Unfortunately, that's only 100 USD. But with inflation, that's $5,000 today. I lied. With inflation, it's only worth 171.08 cents. And it also has to be split between 5 players. But hey, after Blade's first tournament, he was $34.22 richer. That's probably more than you've made playing Counter-Strike. Idiot. Nerd. 3. Anyways, he decided to continue playing with random Ukrainian 5 stacks until 2005 when he was picked up by Amazing Gaming. Also, look at these old logos, man. Virtus Pro looks like it was made by me in like 9th grade. Actually kinda inspiring. Some notable achievements during Blade's time in Amazing Gaming includes a 3rd place finish at World Cyber Games 2007, where Blade's team Amazing Gaming beat Amazing Gaming in the 3rd place decider. If Elon Musk saw these dope-ass team names, he'd burst on the spot. They'd be bought up by the next morning. Blade also won various smaller tournaments, like Asus Open Spring 2006,
Asus Open Spring 2008,
Asus Open Autumn 2005, Asus Open Spring 2010, Asus Open Spring 2012, and Asus Final Battle of the Year 2012.
Thank you for your kind donations, Asus.
Oh yeah, did you notice the name of that last tournament? Asus Final Battle of the Year 2012? Well, that's because 1.6 was now officially dead. CSGO had just released, and whether Blade liked it or not, he was gonna have to learn a new game. So sadly for Blade, that was the last tournament he ever played in 1.6. But he won it at least, so yay. That's cute and adorable and a good end. Okay guys, here's the part of the video where I have a little confession to make. Up to this point, 1.6 Blade seemed to be a fairly good player. While never officially winning an S tier event, he always had pretty decent results at tournaments, and from the videos I've seen, he was damn good mechanically too. He was absolutely by no means the worst player of all time. His transition into global offensive is when things started to go horribly wrong. So technically the title's a little clickbait. He's not the worst Counter-Strike player of all time, but the worst Counter-Strike global offensive player of all time. But listen, I didn't want to spoil anything. It could have been someone playing now, a long time ago. After leaving Amazing Gaming in late 2009, Blade bounced around a couple other teams before eventually landing in Kart, who carried over with Blade from 1.6 to Go. And I mean, this move made sense. They had just won an impressive 1.6 tournament to end off the game. How bad could this go? This team did not last very long. Let's look at one of their matches to see exactly what happened here. Just so we know, Blade's name is Goodbye Stranger. I was gonna call this out for being edgy, but on second thought it's kind of elite, and he is the IGL calling the strats for this team. Absolutely ginormous pistol round smoke gap. Can't hate too much, it was a 1v3. Sprinting ramp alone with no util and dying. The classic rush outside with no util. Their smokes would have missed anyway, so it makes sense. Holding hut and getting dicked by 2 pistols. They made sure outside was smoked this time. Blade solo runs into hut with the bomb and dies to a crossfire. Blade just gets pushed from ramp and dies. No trade. The classic strat of having 1 silo and sending 2 in A to die. Get fucked, by the way. Oh my god. Oh good, they finally have a 4v2. Blade is now in a 1v2. 3 have died with no kills. One 1v2 clutch, okay Blade. Last round of the half, they have to do a strange buy. Blade has the best weapon with a Galil. Blade walks into an op and dies. Well, it is a CT-sided map at least. Let's see what the boys can do. Okay, pistol round win. They should get next round and maybe can bring this back. They win the anti-eco. Blade has decided a deep flash ramp and push. Rip Blade. Blade has decided to solo push ramp. Rip Blade. Alright, this is going to be your last full gun round. If you lose, you gotta lock in, gentlemen. ESC runs at A and decimates them. GG. Now, as you probably noticed, that ESC team included the Virtus Plow Corps that would go on to win a major. So not a bad team by any means. So you might be saying, oh, they aren't that bad. They're just playing a good team. The game before this, they lost 16-2 against Z Nation and against these players. Kirchnet would eventually drop their team after they lost to Overdrive. If you're on CS Twitter, you know this goofball, man. No way he was the last straw. Anyways, these were Blade stats on Kirchnet. A .88 rating and a total of 115 for his total stats. It really couldn't have been a worse start. By the start of 2014, Blade was in a new team, which lasted about a month, then he was signed by DAT. Maybe this time would be better. Blade wanted to prove he could hang in this new game. And while maybe not individually great, maybe he can call his team into some tournament wins, or at least playoff appearances. In his time with the team, they attended 2 S-tier events. They finished last in both. His rating during this time dropped down to a .85, and his total stats dropped down to 80. 80! 14 firepower, 0 entrying, 2 trading, and 2 utility. What did he do? I'm just flabbergasted. I didn't know a sub 100 was even possible. And nearly all of it came from clutching. Somewhat valid, I guess. So at this point, Blade is still playing with Bondic, who he had been playing with since 1.6 when he first joined Kartnet, but now he was also playing with World Edit, who would go on to play with Blade for the rest of his career. Also Flamey, who would go on to have a great career in Na'Vi. Anyways, let's see how this could have possibly gotten so much worse. Okay, so Blade just gets deleted pistol round. Blade puts an entire UMP clip into the wall, thinking it's the enemy, and they end up losing second round after winning the pistol. Swinging before the window smoke pops and getting opt. Full team flash, leading to a death. Okay, here we have a full execute. Let's see how this looks. They've completely changed their mind and are now trying to retake mid. Now they have 30 seconds and no map control besides deep mid. Okay. Blade in a 1v3. Rip Blade. We're trying the A execute again. Team flash and smoked off. They never had a chance. Okay, Blade has top mid control. Let's see what he does. He walks into an op. Okay, now we have a default round. Blade is once again mid. Let's see what he does.
And it's just that they're just getting picked off before they can even get there. And things are starting to go really, really poorly. Very desperate stuff here for that team as they're getting gunned down before they can even do anything.
It looks like my premier match. Blade just isn't even putting himself in positions to get into gunfights. And it's not even like he's supporting his team or getting traded. He's just dying. Now he is upset and running down mid.
Pushing on an pass. And there is some nice move from Guardian.
Somehow Guardian lives. Blade can make a round-winning play here.
Blade gonna take down Starks, clearing the path.
He's slow walking as his teammate killed the CT player.
Or just to go to B. They have quite a few options. There's a lot of time left, and that is really, really low. Zeus, he will go down.
Luckily, Bondic wins the 1v1. On CT side, Blade is an A jungle player, and he gets deleted by Zeus.
Well for them. Blade is going to wrap himself around middle.
Dear Lord. Blade has decided to keep one of the two guns saved over from the last round. Let's see if he can help his team win this half-buy. Clueless. Oh good, they're in a 5v3 with bomb control. Zeus walks through a palace smoke and kills two. I do not know how Blade does not get that kill. Then they lose the 1v1.
That's on Blade. The play coming in on top of the A bomb site very soon. Here we go. They do have a very good setup here on the A side, but the counter flash is just towards connector. Blade.
I mean, this is literally bot Frank gameplay, man. I don't know what else to say. Now, this incredible performance was enough to get the attention of Flipside, a fairly new North American org that was co-owned by professional NFL player Ricky Lumpkin.
I'm with Ricky Lumpkin, pro NFL player at your first esports event.
Oh, this is great. I love it.
It's the exact same thing. It's the same thing.
Instead of maybe throwing a keyboard.
You throw your helmet.
It's the exact same. Like, recently I was playing with Flam.
They decided to enter CS in late 2014 with a Swedish squad. After 7 months, they won 2 C-tier tournaments, and did absolutely nothing else. This was not enough for Mr. Ricky, so they decided to drop the team and go a new direction. Now, it seems they didn't really know too much about Counter-Strike, but they did love the colors blue and yellow. So naturally, they looked at other countries with the same colors on their flag, and voila. The DAT core was signed in early 2015. This included Blade, World Edit, and Bondic from DAT, and one of the greatest oppers of all time, Markelov. Oh yeah, they also had Simple now. And you might be saying, I thought World Edit was the opper. You're right, he was. Markelov was also an opper. And guess what Simple is? Good work, gentlemen, you signed 3 oppers. Luckily for them, Markelov was a 1.6 opper. He was a little washed at this point. But this doesn't change the fact they still had 2 oppers, which resulted in situations like this. Even still, there was a lot of hype around this roster. Simple was a young and up-and-comer. World Edit and Bondic were both fairly decent. Blade was a well-respected 1.6 IGL, and Markelov was one of the best 1.6 oppers of all time. After getting signed, they had around 1 month to prepare for ESL 1 Katowice, the next major. Except one big issue. They would be without their most exciting player. Simple was banned from ESL events until 2016. This was from a few years ago where in CS 1.6, he used a new account to avoid his main account suspension. Brother just sounds like a grinder to me. What's the issue? While this sucked for the team, they were still confident they could make a run. Safe to say, it did not go well. In early CSGO, majors were a lot more brutal than they are today. 2 losses and you were out, and dear God did they lose. Here are Blade's stats for the event. A .33 rating, 0.97 deaths per round, and his stat total came out to 14. We can only go up from here, gentlemen. And go up they did. Leading up to the next major, ESL won Cologne 2015. It looked like Flipside were rapidly improving. They beat Hellraisers in a B-tier event, they made the playoffs in an A-tier event, made the semifinals of Star Series Season 13, an S-tier event, and even made the semifinals of Electronic Sports World Cup 2015, another S-tier event. They were looking like they were improving rapidly. One issue though, that World Cup semifinal run was with a stand-in. They didn't have their actual roster. World Edit's visa got denied, and standing in for him was Hiko, one of the best players in all of North America. They did the classic overachieve with a stand-in run, but that's not even the biggest issue. This semifinal exit pissed Simple the fuck off.
I will still report you though.
Shut the fuck up, please.
He's so fucking retarded.
Now, we don't know exactly what happened, but at this point in Simple's career, he was kind of known for being toxic. And 4 days after this, Simple posted, "This was my last tournament with this team. Thanks to all who supported us. Either that or I will not play with some of the players anymore." He then followed this up by saying, "I just don't like how some of my mates are playing. They're making a lot of mistakes. I can't react normally to seeing this. I'm not saying that someone is better or someone is worse than someone else, but I can't understand how you can't know the basic things after that much time spent in CS." He then deleted Bondic off of Steam. He then directly called out Blade. He was so awful their best player could not handle playing with him anymore. Then he was benched until he was eventually released a couple months later, then followed Hiko to Liquid. Flipside just pissed off their best player right before the major. They replaced him with Davcost, who stood in for Simple at the major right before this, and their results were not much different. They ended up missing playoffs, but at least this time, they won a match. And I gotta give props to our boy. His individual form was a lot better this tournament. He had a 1.04 rating, and his total stats were all the way up to 187. But as an in-game leader, how is your utility 4? I mean, like, actually. Next up was the DreamHack Major, where maybe this would be the time they finally make playoffs. They would go on to lose both of their matches without hitting 10 rounds. And don't worry, boys. Blade was back to his old self. This ended the major cycle for 2015, and all they could do now is look on to next year. At the end of the year, a player named Shara replaced Davcost, and they were ready to make a run at the next major. MLG Columbus 2016. They used a couple low-tier online tournaments to warm up for this. And now it was officially time. They start off with a heartbreaking overtime loss to NIP and look to reset in their next match against Mouse, who were the 10th best team in the world and had a young Nico. But they started incredibly strong with a 12-3 half on Cobblestone, then crumbled and went to overtime. And this match was not 1 overtime, not 2 overtimes, not 3 overtimes, not 4, but 5 overtimes before Flipside once again lost in heartbreaking fashion. Another last place at a major. But the good news is this was Blade's most complete performance at a major this far. He had a 0.9 rating and his total stats added up to 235, which would place him right below current day Hooksy. We're finally to Hooksy level, guys. Pop the champagne. The champagne bottle would roll onto the floor and explode. Shortly after this, Blade's longest tenured teammate, Bondic, would leave for Hellraisers, and he would be replaced with Waylander. And by God, this move lit a spark in Blade. He would carry his form, the best form we've ever seen him in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, to the next major. ESL won Cologne 2016. Fun fact, up to this point in Blade's CSGO career, he was 2-21-1 against Na'Vi. They were his daddy up to this point, and that's exactly who he was playing in the first match. Well, today, he was determined to change that, and oh my God, did he ever. Blade went 25-19 and dropped a 1.44 rating against them as the caller, but nothing ended up changing and they still lost 16-7. Then their next match was against Optic. Loser goes home. And in one of the most CT-sided maps of all time, they were down 6-9 at half. GG. Except they'd go on to have an absolutely incredible T-side and win 16-13. Blade went 21-18 and dropped a 1.08 rating, while calling an incredible T-side on Train. But he was on a heater this tournament, and if this kept up, he would have the opportunity to make the first CSGO major playoffs of his career. But he would have to beat the 4th best team in the world to get there, Ninjas in Pajamas. They lost the first map in a heartbreaking fashion, 16-14. Even worse, it was their map pick. Then World Edit turned into Prime Simple and they won 16-2. Map 3, it was Markelov's turn. Blade had finally done it. He made the playoffs of a major. And for the reward, they get to play SK Gaming in their prime, who had just won the last major. And to be fair, they put up a good fight. They went to overtime map 2, but it wasn't enough. FNX sunned them, and then SK would go on to win their second major in a row. Blade's stats for this tournament weren't too awful. He had a .95 rating, and his total stats added up to 224. Unfortunately for Blade, though, this was not the start of something special, but instead his peak, as he would go on to miss the playoffs of the next 3 majors. Here were his stats during that time period: a .84 rating, and his total stats were 194. By this point, it was already 2018, and Blade had only one notable tournament win, a DreamHack Open tournament in 2017 against Big.
This flip side team has pieced something together. They finally won an offline final outside the CIS region.
This was an A-tier LAN, which in today's terms translates to Complexity beating Falcons at that DreamHack tournament. That was the only LAN Blade ever won in CSGO. During his time on Flipside, he posted an incredible .82 rating, a .84 impact, 17 firepower, 12 entrying, 34 opening, 4 trading, 23 clutching, and 35 utility, for a total of 125. One of the most concerning parts was his incredibly low trading and entrying. While killing nobody, he was consistently dying in spots where his teammates could not trade him, and when he did an entry, he was almost never in a spot to trade, not even useful as a human flashbang. Mechanically in the game, he was nearly completely useless, but his best stat was utility, so let's look at that. Here are some other IGLs who do not frag very well for comparison. Alexi B's utility is a 92, Hooksy's is an 86, and Kerrigan's is a 62. All significantly better. But listen, they are all current IGLs and teams use more utility nowadays. So let's look at 2 other IGLs in similar situations to Blade. Zeus and Hunden both transitioned into Go and were IGLs that retired shortly after him. Hunden, who has the worst rating of all time, had 69 utility. And Zeus, who I don't think many consider a tactical mastermind. The Score Esports literally made a video calling him brain dead, has a better utility rating with a 42. And the worst part, if you look deeper at Blade's utility stats, he throws .49 flashes per round. So he's trying to be a good support player by throwing flashes, except they don't do anything. His time for opponent flash per round is .89. This is so low the bar doesn't even show up. For comparison, Hunden is at 2.07. Even Zeus is at 1.84. And he threw significantly less flashes at .33. Blade also has the least amount of flash assists per round without being 0. This is literally less than Donk. Donk is an entry frag. Truly, unequivocally useless. After 15 years of playing competitively, Blade would retire in 2018 and transition into Flipside's coach. But as most of you probably know, there is a good ending to this story. Shortly after becoming a coach, Blade was loaned to Gambit to be their coach, and in 2019, he joined Na'Vi as their esports director. Within months, he stepped into the role of their head coach as well. Under his leadership, Na'Vi has won 7 Tier 1 tournaments, an Intel Grand Slam, and 2 major titles. This was his true calling. While Blade may have struggled as a player, he has undoubtedly solidified his legacy as one of the greatest coaches in Counter-Strike history. Thank you for watching.